Namaste. Very warm, vibrant, and graceful evening to all the dignitaries, esteemed speaker, scholars, participants joining us from across the nation. When the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. A reminder of Ayurveda's timeless strength and rooted wisdom. We welcome you all to this online sensitization workshop on standardization in Ayurveda. Today's program is jointly organized by Bureau of Indian Standards, Ayush Department under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Government of India, along with DIKSHA Academy in association with Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad, Gujarat. The objective of the sensitization workshop is to create awareness and understanding about the importance of standardization in Ayurveda, focusing on quality, safety, efficiency, and global acceptance of traditional Indian medical system. In the current era, where Ayurveda is gaining worldwide recognition, scientific standardization becomes the backbone for its credibility and global integration. This workshop aimed to bridge the gap between the traditional knowledge and modern regulatory frameworks while familiarizing academicians, practitioners, researchers, and students with the role of BIS and international standards in Ayush system. It is now my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Raghavendra Naik, who is at the forefront of standardization in Ayurveda and Ayush system. Our esteemed speaker is a scientist at the Bureau of Indian Standards, New Delhi, and has been instrumental in developing quality, safety, efficiency standards of Ayurveda. He has contributed to the development of over 120 BIS standards and in the recipients of BIS Committee of the Year Award. At the global level, he served as the committee manager for Ayurveda and Yoga standards at ISO, Geneva, and represent India on international platforms. Academically, he holds BAMS, MD Dravyaguna, and PhD degree with 60 plus research publications and 70 plus invited lectures in his credentials, along with multiple national awards. With such an inspiring profile, today's session is on standardization in Ayurveda could not be in better hands. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Raghavendra Naik, Scientist C, Bureau of Indian Standards, New Delhi. Before starting the session, let me go through a few of the basic instructions to be followed throughout the session. For uninterrupted class session, use laptop with high-speed internet connectivity. Please make sure your microphone is on mute to have a disturbance-free session. In case of any disruption, please check your internet connection first, and if the problem is within our network connection, kindly raise the issue in the chat box. Filling your full name to be displayed is appreciated. Any questions can be raised posted in the chat box. Questions raised will be cleared at the end of the session. Without further delay, I am handovering the session to sir. Over to you, sir.
Namaste and a very good afternoon. Hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Respected senior faculties and dear friends and all the participants present in this online sensitization program. First of all, I thank DIKSHA Academy and Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad Gujarat for organizing this program and giving an opportunity to present the activities what we are conducting in Ayush Department Bureau of Indian Standards since last 3-4 years. This is an important initiative, the initiative of national importance, jointly started by Ministry of Ayush as well as the Ministry of Consumer Affairs for developing national standards for the Ayush, different domains of Ayush systems of medicine. Dear friends, next around 40 to 45 minutes, I will be briefly explaining about these important aspects, the Bureau of Indian Standards as well as the activities of Bureau of Indian Standards, then the Ayush Department in Bureau of Indian Standards and Ayush related standardization activities of Bureau of Indian Standards, and then some important Ayush related standards published by the department, along with Ayush related standardization activities in the international platform. To start with, the basic definition of the standard, the basic introduction. Basically, these are standards are documents, but सभी documents standard नहीं बन सकते. Standards are not every guideline or manual can be called as a standard. For a document to become a standard, two very important conditions must be fulfilled. First, it has to be developed through consensus. That means it is not decided by one person or one organization. Experts from different stakeholder groups like industry, academia, regulators, research, R&D organizations, and even NGOs and users all come together and discuss, they debate and finally agree, and they develop a document. And the second, once the consensus is achieved, in BIS, we are developing consensus through circulation or discussion. In international level, they are reaching consensus by voting. Once that consensus is achieved, the document must be to become a standard, must be approved by a recognized standards body. Only then does it get the formal status of a standard. At the national level, Bureau of Indian Standards is the national standards body. It functions as the national standards body, and it is responsible for developing the and adopting and publishing the Indian standards. And at international level, the most well-established and globally recognized standardization bodies are ISO, International Organization for Standardization, along with the IEC and International Telecommunication Union. Another important point to understand is that most standards developed by these national standards bodies or international standards bodies are voluntary in nature. However, in certain sensitive areas, mainly related to the public safety, a regulator may adopt these standards and make them mandatory, such as in case of toys, electrical appliances, LPG cylinder, helmets, etc. There are some mandatory standards, and they are made mandatory by ministries through the quality control orders. Now, coming to the Bureau of Indian Standards, which is the national standards body of India, it is not just an organization; it is a statutory body established under the BIS Act 2016. And the purpose of establishing this organization was to bring a harmonized and systematic approach to standardization and even the marking and the quality certification in the country. To start with the brief history, it was established in 1947 as a society and registered under Societies Registration Act. Then in mid 1980s or 1990s, a need of giving a legal status was felt, which led to the enactment of BIS Act 1986, and then in subsequently in 2016, it was given the status of the national standards body. And as a national standards body, it is primarily responsible for formulation and publishing the Indian standards and related to product, processes, services, and systems, etc. Mainly, they are developed by keeping in mind both national priorities, even the public interest also. And apart from the standards formulation, BIS also plays an important role in other aspects like conformity assessment through various certification schemes, and BIS also recognizes and operates laboratories, implements the hallmarking, and works for consumer empowerment, that is the creating awareness so that the consumers understand standards and quality marks and their rights also. And most importantly, at the international level, BIS represents India in global standardization platforms, and it ensures that India's interest, India's knowledge, and India's emerging sectors like Ayush are appropriately reflected in international standards. Now, when we talk about standards, the benefits are not just limited to one group like consumers or even regulators. They actually help various stakeholders category like industry, consumers, technologists, government, and others also. Importantly, from an industry perspective, standards act as mainly strategic tools, and they help industries to improve the product quality and reduce the unnecessary variations in the different products. Mainly, they bring uniformity in the products available in the market, and from the consumer point of view, no doubt, they give consumers better choice and easier access to the quality goods and services. And they are like the voluntary guidelines and rules that safeguard the consumer interest. And for technologists and as well as for innovators, they provide a common starting point for research and development, and to avoid duplication of efforts and help in building reduce the time taken to bring a new and innovative product to the market and support their wider adoption in the country. And from a government perspective, they are effective tools for policy implementations, and mainly they support and contribute to the overall economic development of the country. Then, regarding the standard formulation activity in BIS, BIS has identified 17 different sectors, including Ayush, and concerning each sector, there is a division council and more than 400 sectional committees, and are formulating the standards. Most importantly, I just want to highlight that more than 20,000 experts voluntarily associated with BIS for formulating the Indian standards. BIS is not paying any salary to them. They are voluntarily associated with the BIS for developing standards as experts in different committees, working groups, etc. And more than 23,000 standards are already published by Bureau of Indian Standards. And while developing standards, best international level practices are followed. In recent years, BIS has is involved in developing the standards of national priority areas like Make in India or Digital Mission, Jal Jeevan Mission, etc. Then these are different division councils. Ayush, which was latest the creation of Environment and Ecology Department, which was created in 2024 at December, I think. And apart from that, there are other departments like chemical, civil engineering, electrotechnical, textile, water resources, service sector, etc. Now, I'll briefly explain how standards are actually developed in Bureau of Indian Standards. The standards development process mainly it is well structured, and mainly it involves two types of work: advisory and administrative work, and technical work. At the top, there is a governing council which provides overall direction and policy oversight, and supporting this is the executive committee, which looks into executive and operational matters related to BIS activities. Then we have the Standards Advisory Committee, which is an apex level committee that advises BIS on policy matters related to standardization and ensures that the standards development aligns with the national priorities. And below this, there are division councils which are constituted by the Standards Advisory Committee in different areas. They mainly guide and coordinate standardization activities within their respective domains, and the technical heads of the BIS divisions act as a member secretary for this. The actual technical drafting of standards begins at the level of sectional committees. These committees are constituted for specific subject areas. Like for Ayurveda, we have a sectional committee, and they include experts from industry, academia, regulators, R&D institutions, and even other stakeholders like consumer organizations, etc. And the most detailed working level, there are panels and working groups. These actually draft the standards clause by clause based on the technical inputs and their experiences and consensus among the experts. And the conveners and members of these are nominated by the section committee. In summary, standards are not drafted overnight or within a week. They pass through the multiple levels of technical scrutiny. They pass through the consensus building, and then they are approved, ensuring that the final documents is technically strong and it is relevant to the interest of the nation. BIS committees are multi-stakeholder in nature, as I told. No single group or no single person dominates in the process. Each committee is headed by the chairperson, who is usually a subject expert from reputed professional and academic bodies, and the member secretaries from BIS, who mainly facilitates and the process and coordinates the meetings and ensures that all the procedures related to standardization are followed appropriately, and the committee includes representations from all the categories like government regulatory bodies, manufacturers, consulting firms, PSUs, and industry associations, etc. For formulation of the standards, we receive proposal from any ministry or central government whenever there is a need of any standard for implementation of any national program or national policy. They request BIS for developing a national standard, and even state governments, UTs, and consumer organizations, industrial units, industry associations, professional bodies, even an individual, if he feels there is a need of standard in any defined area, he can submit the proposal through BIS portal or through a format which is available in BIS website. Once the BIS receives a proposal for formulation of the standards, the committee decides a reasonable time frame or time scale to complete that project, and that timeline depends on different aspects like complexity of the subjects, volume of work which is involved in completion of that standard, and mainly extent of consensus that needs to be established. On that basis, all the proposals which are urgent in nature and which are directed by the government, which will be taken up as high priority subjects, and those are completed within short duration. And proposals which are involving the huge work, R&D work, and complex subjects, and where wider consultation or wider consensus is needed, those are considered as priority 3 subjects, and all other subjects are considered as priority 2 subjects and completed within the 18 months of time frame. Now, once the committee structure is in place, now this is how a standards actually moves from an idea or new work item to the national standards. The process begins with the new work item proposals received from different stakeholders, as I explained in my previous slide. Once the need of a standard is accepted, then the work formally starts, and a working draft then prepared by the member secretary himself or herself, or it will be assigned for a working group or a working panel. And this working draft, based on the inputs from the members of the working group, is redefined and converted into a preliminary draft, or what we call the P draft stage. The P draft is then circulated to all the committee members for their comments for a minimum period of 2 weeks. And all the comments received at this stage are discussed in committee meetings and resolved through consensus. After incorporating the suitable comments, the document becomes the wide circulation draft. Then this wide circulation draft is then released for the wider consultation, usually for about 60 days. And it should not be less than 1 month. And this stage is very important because it allows all the stakeholders, even those who are outside the committee, to review the draft and give their comments. The comments received during the wide circulation are again examined carefully by the committee, and after addressing these comments and finalizing the text, the documents becomes the final draft or F draft. It is then placed before the Division Council for adoption. Once approved, it is finally published as Indian standard or a national standard through the Gazette notification. This is the process we are following for the development of any standard in Bureau of Indian Standards. And many people think that once a standards is published, it remains the same forever. But In reality, BIS standards are living documents. Once a standard is published, it enters its life cycle. Over time, technology changes, user needs changes, and the new evidences or practices are also emerged. Because of this, every standard is taken up for periodic review. In BIS, the review of each standard is mandatory at least once in every 5 years, and the main purpose is to check whether the standard is still relevant and which is aligned with the technological developments. After review, there are multiple possible outcomes. If the standard is still technically valid and still it is relevant, it may simply be reaffirmed, meaning it continues without any change. If minor changes are required, such as corrections or small updates, an amendment may be issued to the existing standard. And if significant changes are needed due to new technology or updated practices or updated regulatory requirements, the standard is revised and republished as a revised edition of that standard. In some cases, when a technology becomes obsolete or the standards is no longer in use, the standards are withdrawn, and such withdrawn standards are generally archived for recorded reference purposes. These are the some types of standards: product specifications, method of test, terminology, sampling methods, system standards, service standards, BIS is the publishing. Then the next part of my presentation, that is Ayush related standardization activity in Bureau of Indian Standards. I'll briefly start by briefly explaining why we need BIS standards for Ayush systems, because Ayush has multiple bodies like CCRS, even WHO, Traditional Medicine Center, Pharmacopoeia Commission, National Medicinal Plant Body Board, and several research institute either published guidelines, monographs, and even technical documents. Even the institutes have their own internal in-house specifications, documents. Why we need BIS standards for Ayush systems? The main reason is though there are multiple guidelines are available, these are not considered as formal national standards. They may be excellent scientific references. They may be good monographs, but they do not serve the purpose that BIS standards serve. Because BIS standards are nationally recognized and used across industries, regulators, manufacturers, and even the laboratories, they provide a uniform and harmonized benchmark that brings all the technological knowledge, and having BIS standards mainly avoids duplication, that reduces the contraindications and ensures clarity for manufacturers and regulators. And in short, just to make it clear, we already have knowledge, we already have many documents and guidelines. BIS converts that knowledge into nationally accepted standards that industry and international bodies recognize. And for just I want to again make it clear that before explaining what we are doing, what we will not do, because the BIS, that department does not conflict with the existing laws or existing regulatory landscape in Ayush, because the Bureau of Indian Standards operates and gives certification under BIS Act 2016. And its system is independent and ensures that product conforms to a established Indian standard. And therefore, BIS does not override or overlap or duplicate the mandates of other Ayush regulatory bodies. Instead, it complements them. Many acts and policies govern are available in Ayush, like Drug and Cosmetic Acts, the National Commission for Indian System of Medicine, FSSCI, or Ayurveda Ahara, and various missions under the Ministry of Ayush. BIS focuses on only standards and confirmatory assessment, and it will not overlap with the regulatory controls like licensing or enforcement of act or approval of the medicines. and to mainly to ensure the clarity in the scope, because each regulatory framework has its own scope. Like drug laws regulates the medicines, FSSA regulates the products, NCSM governs the education, NMPB sees the cultivation aspects, etc., etc., and BIS only deals with the standards and quality benchmarks to prevent any confusion among industry and users, and we will not repeat what other regulatory bodies are already doing. Instead, we are filling the gaps by developing standards only where they are missing to implement these programs. This is regarding the brief history of Ayush related standardization Bureau of Indian Standards. It was actually started in 2012 when a committee was created under Food and Agriculture Department of Bureau of Indian Standards. That was Ayush Sectional Committee, and the first standard was published in 2021. It was related to terminology of fundamental principles. In 2022, with the request of Ministry of Ayush, BIS created a separate technical department for Ayush systems. We have a separate division council now, headed by the respected Secretary Ayush, and we have different sectional committees under this Ayush division council. And since a short duration, within 3 years, we have published more than 200 standards in the Ayush department. This was the roadmap, what we defined when we started our activities, starting from terminologies related to Ayush systems, single herbs, different equipments, service requirements of health and wellness, and mainly the yoga accessories, yoga attire, naturopathy therapy, SOPs, and quality and safety of equipments, procedures, packaging materials, etc. And these are the 7 sectional committee for each Ayush system: Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, Sorik, and Homeopathy. And under Ayurveda sectional committee, we have around 56 members representing around 26 organizations. And for structured approach in standards formulation, we have 16 working groups, starting like working group for different working groups for equipment standardization, working groups for Akshara Sutra and related subjects, working group for single herbs, extra pharmacopoeia herbs, pharmacovigilance, and dietetics, dosage form, kriya kalpa, etc. We have a representation from all the stakeholders category, like industry association, regulatory bodies, etc. And these are the different categories of standards published. And since last 3 years, most of the standards are related to single herbs, and apart from that, more than 20 standards in different parts have been published for Ayush terminologies. More than 10 standards for equipments we have published, and for SOPs and protocols, around 8 standards have already been published. Then a brief regarding different categories of standards published in the sector of Ayurveda. One main aspect is standards related to the terminologies. Just to make it clear, today we do have many portals, glossaries, and many reference platforms where Ayurvedic terms are explained. They are available, but they are useful for learning and awareness purposes, no doubt. But when we write the standards in a national or international level, informal or portal-based definitions are not sufficient, not accepted. We need something that is official and universally acceptable. This is where BIS standards come in, and these are considered as authoritative references. And when a term is used in any Indian standard or cited in an international discussion or international standard, there should be no ambiguity, and everybody or everyone should be referencing the same agreed definition. So, with this intention, when Ayurveda is taken forward into national standards or ISO discussions and international regulatory documents or research protocols, BS terminology standards become the common reference points, and we have around 7 standards published by Bureau of Indian Standards, starting from terminology for fundamental principles, food and beverages, medicinal preparations, etc. Another area where standards is the single herbs, prescribes the requirement and method of test for herbal raw materials, around more than 120 standards we have already published, which includes all the aspects related to the quality, safety, purity, and identity of the raw materials used in the Indian system of medicine. And to test the requirements given in those standards, we have published one it's under publication on standard on test methods are also under publication. This is an example how Ayurveda medical devices are also being standardized, because in the latest document published by the WHO also, there is a separate category of category mentioned as Ayurveda medical devices, and it is repeatedly stressed that the Ayurveda medical devices should be of defined quality, and this is one standards Droni published by Bureau of Indian Standards, because traditionally Droni is made in different ways, like different materials, different shapes and sizes, depending on the region of the practitioner. But when such equipment is used repeatedly for therapies, patient safety or hygiene and the functionality is also very important. And this standard specifies the minimum requirements and dimensional details for a drone made up of wood or fibers. The main idea is to not to restrict the traditional practice, but to bring uniformity and safety where it really matters. And this standard clearly specifies the permitted materials, and based on the experience of the industry, we listed some specific plant-based woods as well as modern materials like heavy duty fiberglass and pure field fiber also. And even it defines the shape and dimensions for each compartment, like head part, body part, and the provisions for the drainage, legs, frames, and even the finishing and the surface quality also, and tests such as resistance to heat, oil, fats, liquids, and mechanical damage, because these devices are exposed to medicated oils, steams, and repeated use. And even the marking and packaging related aspects are also defined in these standards. Continuing with the Panchakarma equipment, the next example is Shirodhara Yantra, which is in standard 18089 part 2. Because as Shirodhara is a very sensitive therapy, even a small variations in the height, floor alignment of the equipment can affect the therapeutic outcome and even the patient comfort also. Even traditionally, different clinics use different types of stands and vessels, which again leading inconsistency in the practice, and these standards addresses that gap by giving the minimum requirements and dimensional details for the Shirodhara stand as well as the Shirodhara vessel made up of mainly it covers the stands made up of metal or wood, and the vessels made of metal or ceramic or clay. And even in these standards also we defined different tests such as staining test, because the equipment comes into constant contact with the medicated oils and liquids, and the sampling, marking, packaging guidelines are also provided in this standard. This is another standards which prescribes the minimum requirements and the method of test for Kshar Sutra. Important specifications like the method of preparation of Kshar Sutra, and physical requirements like length, weight, tensile strength, or breaking load, and the chemical requirements like loss on drying, different soluble extractive values, turmeric percentage, curcumin percentage, and etc. are mentioned, and sampling and marking and packaging guidelines for this Kshar Sutra are also defined in this standard. This is another important standards in that series, which is published last year in 2025, which covers the electrotechnical specifications for Kshar Sutra cabinet. Along with their performance and safety requirements, and which mainly defines the important specifications like material and construction of Kshar Sutra, how it should be, and performance requirements like rated voltage or voltage range, power, temperature range, control, accuracy, uniformity, etc. And mainly the safety requirements for extrastructural cabinets like protection against access to live parts, heating, leakage current, provisions for earthing, resistance to rusting, etc. Another important standard in academic point of view, which is developed with the help of our Indian Institute of Ayurveda, New Delhi. This is the sensory assessment, that is Rasa Nirdharana, the part one, mainly through sensory evaluation, which mainly defines the general test conditions like requirements for testing, how the room should be, what is the minimum temperature, and the authentication and collection of the trial drug, preparation of the trial drug, criteria for volunteers, like who should be the volunteers, what is the ratio, gender ratio, including gender ratio, minimum age for volunteers, how to prepare or sensitize the volunteers, how to train the volunteers, etc. And by some criteria like preliminary discussion before going for the Rasa Nirdharana, and the methodology of Rasa Nirdharana, collection of data in two different parts of the parts for analysis of the data. What are all the information the study report should have, and the different annexures like passport data for the collection of the samples, including all the necessary safety or authentication reports and standards protocols for determination of the rasa. And another standard, which again published with the help of National Pharmacovigilance Center, which is located at All India Institute of Ayurveda, for quality management of pharmacovigilance centers, which are functioning under National Pharmacovigilance Program for Ayurveda, Siddha, and Unani and homeopathy systems, which the standards again it's a service related standards, gives the basic requirements like how pharmacovigilance, what is the minimum infrastructure which is required for establishing a pharmacovigilance center, what are all the requirements for internal and external audits, and the organization, mainly it should be a NCSM recognized college or recognized research institute and a research council, with the minimum patient requirement and minimum infrastructure requirement, what are all the manpower which is required based on the existing provisions of the National Pharmacovigilance Program. The staff or manpower deployed in this pharmacovigilance center shall have the periodic trainings and even the orientation programs of in each 6 months, and the guidelines for collection and the processing of the reports, the report submission guidelines, and the management of the documents, records, and data. These are all some criteria which are mentioned for the quality management of pharmacovigilance standards. Then for dissemination of the standards formulated by BIS, we are doing many activities. One such initiative is the catalog of standards for Ayush system, which gives a consolidated picture of all the Indian standards available in the Ayush domain. It was released by the Honorable Minister of Consumer Affairs during last International Standards Day program. We have also carried out the mapping of standards with various Government of India schemes and missions, particularly those related to the Ministry of Ayush. There are some compendium of standards which are available in the BIS portal, which give a brief overview of the standards formulated in the different domains like terminologies, equipments, and single hubs, etc. Apart from that, the latest edition, that last edition of Standards Watch, featured the standards for Ayurveda and Yoga under the theme Standards for Emerging India, and we have established some standards clubs in the academic institutes to mainly to give awareness to students regarding the standards formulation activity in Ayush systems of medicine, and to regularly involve stakeholders in standards formulation process whenever we are developing standards, and whenever the standards are in a wide circulation stage. We discuss with the relevant category of stakeholders, and for any improvement or for any additional or any changes in the standards which is proposed for development. Then next, the international activities, that is ISO and Ayush related standardization. A brief background related regarding the ISO. Basically, it is an NGO representing all the national standards bodies like BIS. There are 173 national standards bodies in different countries. All the national standards bodies come together to form the ISO. Each country has one representation, and there are more than 825 committees or subcommittees are working for standards formulation, and BIS is holding the secretariat of around 14 such secretariats, and Ayurveda is one. Ayurveda and yoga is one among them. More than 25,000 standards are already published by the Bureau of Indian Standards. Regarding the benefits of the standards, to explain in brief, no doubt they are helping the consumers by providing the most reliable standards. Mainly, they are helping the small and medium enterprises because these ISO standards make it easier to meet regulatory requirements of different countries at a lower cost. They improve the processes, and they help the companies to enter the global markets, and mainly they are developed by the consensus of the different experts from the different countries, and whenever these countries are developing any policies or any government initiatives or regulations in their country, these ISO standards are generally accepted by the many of the ISO member countries. Then regarding the proposal for creation of the ISO entry of ISO in Ayush in ISO systems, in 2022, BIS submitted a proposal to ISO, International Organization for Standardization, for the creation of a dedicated technical committee for Ayush systems. The main idea was to provide a focused international platform for standardization in Ayurveda and yoga and related traditional system, that's Ayush systems. And as per the ISO procedures, the proposal was circulated to ISO member countries for voting and for a duration of 12 weeks. And though the proposal received a significant support or attention during that time, it fell short of approval by a small margin of 1 or 2 votes. And after carefully analyzing the comments and different concerns raised by the other member countries during the ballot, it was decided that a more focused and refined approach was needed, and therefore it was decided to submit a new proposal specifically for the creation of an ISO technical committee on Ayurveda and yoga. And for this purpose, Ministry of Ayush constituted an expert committee to draft and finalize the proposal, and the initial draft was prepared with the help of the committee, and it was then it was further refined based on the inputs from the International Relations Department of the BIS to make it more technically strong, and to make it more aligned with the ISO expectation. And it was submitted to the ISO in January 2024. And in between, there were many rounds of the review, many concerns from the ISO member countries, and it was then again submitted in the presented in the ISO Technical Management Board meeting, and it was decided. ISO decided to go for again for voting, and in between during the voting period, we made a lot of efforts and wrote to all the national standards bodies to support in favor of this proposal, and through Indian embassies and other Indian organizations also. We requested all the NSBs and Indian embassies also, and we conducted different web sessions, one-to-one meetings with the different countries for getting the support. And now we have a separate subcommittee for Ayurveda and yoga under the name of a committee, that is ISO TC 249 traditional medicine, and we have participation from around 32 countries, and this number 13 participating and 18 observing members, it may look simple, but it carries a very deep meaning, and it means that whenever we in India through Bureau of Indian Standards develop a standard related to Ayurveda and yoga, these countries are part of that process directly or indirectly. And when these standards eventually became the ISO or international standards, all these countries then have the option to refer to or adopt them while framing their own policies and while framing their regulations or guidelines on traditional medicine. This is a very significant step because it ensures that Ayurveda standards or yoga standards developed in India gain global visibility and even the global acceptance. And mainly, they create a positive economic impact uh, to the country, opening opportunities for exports, even the international collaborations and recognition of Indian products or Indian medicines in the different ISO member countries. And now we are in the process of proposing new work items for the ISO standards development. We have identified some priority areas. We are collecting the export potential of these items, and we are planning to prepare some new work item proposals in the areas like equipment used in Ayurveda, yoga accessories, single herbs and terminologies, etc. And before creation of the committee, there is a another committee which is called ISO-TC 215 Health Informatics, which mainly develops standards for the informatics point of view. In almost 3 years back, BIS created a dedicated working group in this committee on that is for traditional medicine and from informatics point of view, one standards that is the standard on introduction of Ayurveda informatics was also published 2 years back. Then, in the end, to conclude, I just make one thing very clear. Ayush systems, no doubt, they are gaining wider acceptance and visibility. And with this growing reach or growing interest among other countries, it is very important that quality and safety are not left to individual interpretation, but it should be supported by well-defined standards also. And the BIS has taken up this responsibility by creating a focused department or focused mechanism for Ayush-related standardization in national or international levels. Uh, these standards are not meant to replace the practice or replace the practice, but to support practitioners and industry by providing common references or common reference points for the quality. And but they achieve their purpose only when they are actually implemented and referred or practiced and when they are adopted across the education or manufacturing, clinical practice, and regulation, they achieve their actual purpose. And again, the strengthening of this Ayurveda through standards is again the shared responsibility of all the stakeholders categories like manufacturers, even the academic institutions, academicians, regulators, professionals, etc. And I hope even the academia and the industry also come together towards this the important and the national initiative started by the Ministry of Ayush as well as the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. With this, I again thank the DIKSHA Academy, Vishwa Ayurveda Parishad, and all the other experts or other supporting team who involved in arranging this program, this small sensitization program. And we are conducting regularly we are conducting such programs, and I hope we'll get some ideas from the participants who joined in this session. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time for such an enlightening session. Now we will go ahead to the question and answer session. Shall we begin, sir?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Delegates, please post your questions in the chat box. Participants, if you have any doubt, please post in your chat box or do hand raising. So we are having one question. How to standardize Ayurveda diagnostic tools?
Okay, I think for Ayurveda diagnostic tools, the main approach what BIS we are following is we have limited manpower and we have the main approach. Even the BIS is other departments are also following. Whenever we develop standards, we consider any information which is already available, R&D information which is available in the reputed organizations or reputed R&D institutes. We consider that as base information, and then we prepare a draft, and we go for wider consultation among all the stakeholders. We receive inputs and we finalize that standards. Particularly, I think for Ayurveda diagnostic tools, the Central Council for Research in Ayurvedic Sciences is working for developing those standards, and we are planning to have an MOU with the CCRS, and we are taking the information, R&D information available with the CCRS, which is already available with CCRS for development of such standards. And if any information is not available and we need to develop any such new informations, we have an R&D project provision in BIS through the committee members and through the institutes with which BIS is having MOUs. We can develop the standards related to any new area like diagnostic tools, etc. If you receive any, we have already received a request for developing standards on this domain, and we are taking up this for standards development.
Thank you, sir. Is there any standard about Ayurvedic pharmaceutical process, especially herbometallic drug?
As of now, we have not developed any standards, but we have last year we received a request from even by the ministry only to develop standards related to process of different dosage forms or different preparation of different medicines. We have created a separate working group, and working group has identified many dosage forms, even herbal and herbometallic and mineral preparations, and we're developing standards for in this area also. In ISO recently, in informatics point of view, one standard that is information model for preparation of the herbal decoction is already published, and apart from that, for Indian standards, we have identified these different dosage forms, and we are developing standards on through a dedicated working group.
Thank you, sir. Next question. What is the role of an observer country in standardization committee?
Observer country, whenever a country opts a membership in any international committee, there are two types of membership: participating membership or observer membership. Participating member means they have direct access to all the activities of our committee and all the documents of our committee. They have voting rights whenever we circulate any ballot or any new work item proposal for developing of the standard. They have the right to give the comment. They have the right for voting also, but observer member only they can observe the activities of committee. They don't have any voting rights and comments rights, etc. But at any stage they can become the participating member.
Thank you. Sir, next, any standardization tools for skin diseases?
No, we have not yet published any standardization tools for skin disease. At present, it's not available.
Okay, sir. Please guide regarding standardized Kshara Sutra therapy.
Therapy SOPs we are developing standards, because whenever we develop any service related standard for any center, we need some SOPs related to different therapeutic procedures. For that, we are developing standards like for Tarpanal, Kshar Sutra, Agni Karma, Jaloka, etc. Kshar Sutra therapy SOPs we have provision in our scope. For individual treatment point of view, we are not individualizing or going for treatment point of view.
Thank you, sir. Can we standardize a single research material like a specific medical patch? What is the procedure for the same?
If it is a product specification, I think ma'am is asking regarding the product, right?
Single research material.
Can you please make it more clear, ma'am?
Yes,
Not
Dr.
getting it.
Malavika, can you do hand raise?
Yeah, any product related standard you can propose, ma'am. There is a provision for development of any standard, even including the specific medical patches also.
Okay, sir.
If there's another
Next,
question, who can submit a
who can
proposal?
who can
Any
submit a proposal for standard development in an untouched area of Ayurveda?
any individual, even any individual can also submit a proposal if he thinks if there is a need of any standards in any area. Anybody can propose the new work items even through in BIS portal. There is a you can create your guest user ID, and there is a provision to propose new work items, new areas, and that will be discussed in committee. And if it is relevant or if it is needed, we'll take up that subject.
Thank you, sir. Next, is there any standards for parasurgical procedures?
I think I already answered this, and we are developing standards for all the parasurgical procedures.
Okay, sir. Next, if some researchers had developed some standards for Ayurvedic procedure, how can he communicate to BIS? Is it possible or not?
Yes, it's possible. You can propose it as a new item for standards formulations, or it is already under development. You can get all the details through BIS portal. I'll share the link. You can create a guest user ID, and you can log in, and you'll have the access to all the documents. And even you can submit new proposals through portal also.
So here we come to the end of the question and answer session. Once again, thank you, sir, for sharing your expertise. We appreciate your time and knowledge in enlightening us today. Dear delegates, I hope you found today's session informative. I trust that the insight shared will prove to be a valuable addition to your clinical practice. If you have any further questions or need clarifications on any point, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you once again for your participation and engagement. To know more about our updates, please do stay connected with our social media platforms. Knowledge is the treasure of a wise man. Let this not be an end, but a new beginning to carry forward the flame of Ayurveda into the future of global healthcare. Let Ayurveda not just survive, but thrive for the wellness of the world. Thank you. Namaste. Stay connected, stay inspired.
Thank you. Thank you.